Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, Brockin' Around the Homestead. Today we're going to be cooking up a storm, as we like to say in the South, but really we're going to be cooking up an authentic South Louisiana gumbo. I'm also going to show you this new shortcut I learned about cooking a roux in the oven. It's super easy and probably the best one I've ever made. First, I'm going to start out by adding 1.5 cups to 2 cups of white all-purpose flour with equal parts of vegetable oil. Stirring this consistently will make the roux smooth, and that's what you want, no lumps. Then I'm going to let it simmer for a few minutes while I preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Once I get the consistency just how I want it, I'll put it in the oven with the lid on for 30 minutes. This process will take approximately 4 times, maybe 5, to get the desired color I want, which is usually about the color of a copper penny. Next, I'll put a whole chicken in my Instapot to pressure cook it for the gumbo. I'll add celery, onions, garlic, salt, and pepper to make the broth. With this process, you're getting 2 ingredients for the price of 1. The meat for the gumbo and a rich homemade broth to make this gumbo extra good. While I'm waiting on the timer for the roux to go off, I'm going to chop my vegetables for the trinity. That's 2 ribs of celery, 1 whole yellow onion, 1 bell pepper, and 3 cloves of garlic. The garlic's not really a part of the trinity, but it's the celery, onions, and bell pepper that people in Louisiana call the Holy Trinity of any Cajun cooking. Now it's time to check the roux. I'm going to stir it and make sure that the flour incorporates back into the oil before it goes back in the oven. Then I'll put the lid back on and I'll put it back in the oven for another 30 minutes until it turns a different shade of brown. After round number 2, you can see the roux is the color of peanut butter or a little darker. If I was cooking an etouffee, this would be perfect. But for a gumbo, it needs to be a little bit darker. So back in the oven it goes for another 30 minutes for round 3. The nice thing about this oven roux is that while it's cooking on its own, I don't have to stand over it and stir it constantly like I would with the one over the stove. So while it's doing its thing in the oven, I can do other things like put on a pot of rice and I can sweat my veggies. Now, everybody makes their gumbo a little different. Some are more in line with traditional South Louisiana cooking methods, while others, well, they're trying to create their own ways to get the same results as we are. As for me, I like to sweat my onion, celery, and bell pepper in its own skillet. And some other people like to incorporate it into the roux, but as you can tell, I can't do that because my roux is baking in the oven. So there you go. You want to make sure your onions go in first so they can become translucent. When you can see that that starts to happen, add the celery and bell pepper. Once that's gotten a little tender, add the garlic. Adding the garlic too soon could cause it to burn, and you don't want that. Alexa, set the timer for 20 minutes. Okay, it looks like our chicken's done and this broth looks amazing. I'm gonna get out my strainer and I'm gonna pour the liquid directly into the roux that I just pulled out of the oven. Before I pour it, I'm gonna take the chicken out and I'm gonna put it on a glass pie plate to cool before I debone it. Not sure why I always use a glass pie plate, but I'm pretty sure it's because my mom always did. Oh, also, I made the roux a little darker by finishing it off on the stove. It was getting late and I was getting a little impatient, so I decided to cheat a little bit and make it a little bit darker. This roux is looking good in the neighborhood.
Can't you smell that smell?
Next, I'll add the Holy Trinity to the broth roux mixture, and I'm going to stir it up. This is a chicken and sausage gumbo. The sausage you pick is very important. I always use either a smoked sausage or an andouille sausage, which is my favorite. Today I found a pre-sliced Holmes, Texas andouille sausage. It was the same price and amount as the link sausage, and it saved me some work. I'm gonna brown it in a skillet separately before I add it into the gumbo. Frying it beforehand will give you good drippings that you can use to make a roux if you want to for extra flavor, or you can strain off the grease so it doesn't end up in the gumbo and make it extra oily. I just seasoned the gumbo with garlic powder, about 2 tablespoons, Louisiana or Crystal's hot sauce, and 2 to 3 tablespoons of any Cajun seasoning. I like to use Tony Chachere's. I also add some extra pink Himalayan salt for extra flavor.
What I've decided,
Yeah.
we're gonna flip the chairs upside down, which is what I did.
What you do when?
Because Dennis says we're not gonna have a wind event here.
It's just gonna be rainy.
Well, not even all that much. We're gonna, I mean, he said we'll get some gusts, but not hurricane strength gusts or anything. It's just surge is gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
So it will be stormy, but nothing like Cat 5 stormy.
I deboned the entire chicken and put it right in the broth. Since it had been in that pressure cooker in the Instapot, it was so tender and so good. It was perfect. There really wasn't any grease that I had to strain off from that sausage, so I just added it right into the gumbo and it seemed to be just fine. So here's the interesting thing about cooking. Sometimes you mess up and you have to problem solve your problem. So I noticed that I had a little too much oil in this roux, and I had to whip up a small batch of traditional roux on the stovetop with more flour in it. Since the broth was already dark, I didn't need to make my roux super dark. I was just able to go ahead and incorporate this into the gumbo as it was, and this broth made the roux a little bit darker. I was also just praying that this trick would actually work, so I didn't have to start all over again. It looks like it's making a thick, muddy gravy, but what it's actually doing is it's making some magic happen. I am going to be real and honest with you. I am not a professional YouTuber, and sometimes I really mess up. So you get to look at me sideways adding this roux to this gumbo, but I wanted to show you the process anyway, even though you're looking at half of my tripod. Sorry. worse.
Well,
I had too much oil in this other one. I tried to be smart and do something in the oven and try something different, and okay, here we go. This is the finished product of my gumbo, and y'all would love this. It is so delicious and flavorful. I hope that you will go ahead and give this a try. Your family is gonna love it. Thank you for watching. Y'all have a blessed day.